Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing the Synastry chart between Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner by request. There's a lot of interesting aspects and details in the Synastry chart, so hang on to the end because it all comes together. His lust, Paramus and Thisbe conjuncts her north node, 1 degree. Whatever conjuncts your north node from the other person will end up being the underlying theme in the relationship. Lust conjuncting her north node, that's self-explanatory. There's a lot of lust in this relationship, and that's verified by her Sun, Mars, and Pluto conjunction falling into his 8th house that rules sex. So there's lots of primal passion between these two. Paramus and Thisbe conjuncting her north node. In Greek mythology, these two had a very tragic love story. They ended up committing suicide because of very unfortunate circumstances. Now, I don't think that Natalie committed suicide, but nonetheless, this spells a lot of tragedy between the two of them. I do know that Lana, her sister, she wrote a book and said that Natalie had tried to commit suicide because of she was very heartbroken because her and Robert had broken up. Now, his Mars conjuncts her Seagrave, 0 degrees. Mars is a war planet, lower octave of Pluto, very powerful, and it can bring a lot of energy to whatever it conjuncts. And in this case, her Seagrave. That has to do with water and graves. It's in the sign of Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, and her Uranus is in the 8th house of death. His Uranus is in Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars. Aries, anger, Uranus, sudden. So there's a sudden anger that happened between the two of them. And I'm correlating this with the event chart because that's very important. I may do that because if I did the event chart, it would validate a lot of the energies, or most of them, and the dynamics that happened between these two in their relationship. Her Jupiter conjuncts his Zeus, Ishtar, and Attila. Jupiter magnifies whatever it touches in a synastry chart. It magnifies the energies because Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. So her Jupiter conjuncting his Zeus, that has to do with cheating. Ishtar has to do with arguments and blow-ups. Attila, that has to do with cruelty, forcefulness, and possible violence, like Attila the Hun. So this all makes sense to me. She probably had a huge argument with him, accusing him of cheating, and things got ugly. Her Dolores, Semper and Hell, conjuncts his Sun, 1 degree, and also Icarus and Venus. So I have a lot of asteroids here holding hands, and I'm going to break it down for you. Her Dolores, that has to do with pain and suffering, and Semper has to do with loyalty and devotion. So there's this pain in her life, pain within the relationship over his possible cheating and her devotion towards him, but hell is involved, and that asteroid has to do with cover-ups and hiding things, and it's conjuncting his Sun, a very important luminary. Also, his Sun is conjuncting the asteroid Icarus, and that has to do with rash and impulsive behavior, holding hands with Venus, the love planet. Now, his Pholus conjuncts her asteroid Arafila. I think I said that right. In Greek mythology, that asteroid has to do with death and murder, and Pholus has to do with an explosion. So there's this explosion in the relationship due to death and possible murder. Her Mercury conjuncts his Bellerophon in the 9th house, and the 9th house rules travel, and they were on a trip. Mercury, the thinking and talking planet. So there was a conversation between the two of them. I think it was an argument, which is validated by the event chart and also with the aspect that I just explained beforehand that has to do with Jupiter and Ishtar. So there was this huge blow up, and there's accidents that result in disabilities. Bellerophon in Greek mythology was riding the horse, and he wanted to get to heaven. And one of the Greek gods rejected him. So Bellerophon fell off the boat, fell off his horse, and became disabled and didn't get to go to heaven. You following these energies and how everything's starting to tie in together? Her Natalie, vertex and lacrimosa conjuncts his north node. So this is a karmic connection and destiny. It's in the seventh house, which rules committed relationships. And lacrimosa conjuncting his north node, again, there's tears and crying and pain involved on both sides, actually. And her Natalie is there. So that's, to me, again, it's a karmic connection whenever I see PNAs falling on really important points in a synastry chart. Her Chiron conjuncts his moon, 2 degrees. Chiron is like, it's called the wounded healer. But in my opinion, and out of all of the charts I've done, more often it brings pain. It can bring healing, but it's a wild card. You never know what to expect with Chiron. And usually when I see Chiron conjuncting another person's moon, and this is at 2 degrees, there will be emotional pain involved, and the relationship can end quite suddenly, you won't be able to repair the relationship. So I think this applies to the dynamics between these two. Her point of fortune looks like a circle with a cross in the middle. It conjuncts his vertex in the 8th house, and that has to do with, it's a fateful encounter, and it's falling in the 8th house. So this means that it's a fateful karmic encounter that will change your life forever. Her requiem, Pere, I think I'm saying that right. It's a medical asteroid, and it's in his 8th house, and it's conjuncting his descendant. So her requiem, that has to do with funeral for the dead. Pere has to do with head injuries. And since it's in his 8th house and it conjuncts his descendant, a very important angle, these energies will come into play within the relationship. And the reason why I'm saying that I think there were head injuries involved, well, actually the asteroids are saying that, but it is validated actually by the event chart, the timestamp at 12:01 a.m. on November 29th. In that chart, Mars was rising in the 1st house. And whenever you have Mars in the 1st house in an event chart, it always signifies violence and a fight is coming and head injuries. Because Mars is ruled by Aries, and Aries rules the head area. Now, her Uranus in the 8th house in her natal chart, that signifies sudden death. And it's a mysterious death because her Uranus is trining Neptune in her 12th house of endings. And Neptune is a water sign. It's ruled by Pisces, and that's water. His Jupiter, Culpa, and Plunge in his 7th house conjuncts her as Bolus in the 8th house. Jupiter, again, magnifies what it touches. His Jupiter's holding hands with Culpa and Plunge. And Culpa, that asteroid has to do with the energies are guilt. And Plunge has to do with being plunged into water. So she was put into a dinghy, and there were 2 men involved. And I think this accident could have been prevented. But I'm getting ahead of myself because now I'm going back to the event chart. His Maniac conjuncts her sun, 2 degrees. The sun, a very important luminary in a compatibility chart. So you have to pay attention to what energies conjunct your sun, and in this case, his maniac. And that's self-explanatory, really. I'm going to get to some planetary aspects. Before I do, I just want to say, I just remembered, in his natal chart, the asteroid Natalie is conjuncting the asteroid Ixion 1 degree. And Ixion, that energy has to do with murder. Okay, so planetary aspects. His moon squares her ascendant by 4 degrees. This energies have to do with emotional outbursts and feeling of walking on eggshells. So when she was around him, she felt like she had to walk on eggshells because it's a square, and there's, like I said, emotional outburst. But she wasn't a shrinking violet. She could hold her own. But there was a lot of dissension in this relationship, and not only emotional outbursts that resulted in a lot of anger and hostility, because his Mars opposes her Pluto 3 degrees. That's pretty tight. With this opposition, it can result in hatred and cruelty between two people, and even violence can be strongly indicated. Alex Murdaugh had this aspect with his wife Maggie. Also, his Mars conjuncts her Mars, 4 degrees. That has to do with ego battles. And his Mars squares her moon, 1 degree. Emotional combativeness. Mars, the war planet, moon, feelings and emotions, and the moon person, which is her, she can provoke and upset him with a strong response. So that's all I have, and I will be back soon with other synastry charts, and I may do the event chart between these two because I do think that's important. So if you're interested in hearing about more, hit the subscribe button, and I will be back soon. Have a nice day.